close the camera on their video. We always do record the roundtable sessions that we do. Just going to turn off the transcription. Okay, and thank you to everybody joining us today for our roundtable, which is kindly hosted by our partners, Washpoint. We are also joined today by Ross Carpenter, who's the Site Operations Manager at the University of Southampton, and Emily Stotton, who is joining us from Washpoint. And at this stage, I will hand over to Emily and Ross. We will have the slides from today available through the Cubo member knowledge area later today, along with a recording of today's session as well.
Thanks, Sarah. So I'm just sharing my screen. Let me double check. There we go. So we're going to be talking today about challenging the laundry status quo and the power of student voice in driving change. And then, as Sarah said, my name's Emily. I'm Marketing Director at Washco. And then Ross, it would be great. I know we've got your title. If you could just introduce what it is that you do for the University of Southampton.
Mute. I'm the Site Operations Manager at in residences within the university. I look after about a third of our 6,100 bed space estate. It's operational management that I do mostly, running teams, and I have quite a lot of involvement in procurement exercises. So laundry fell into my lap at one point, and then I became the sort of unofficial laundry expert within halls.
Lovely, thank you. So we're going to talk about some of the changes today that the university put in place. But first of all, to give some context to the national picture, at Washpoint, we carry out a biannual student research, and we found a real difference over the survey that we did most recently and the survey before that. And you'll see at the top there that paying my bills increased by 3 points and became the #1 concern for students. Of course, that's probably not surprising given the cost of living crisis, and also because of all the impacts of the cost of living crisis, that there is the increase in the cost of rents. At the same time, the property marketing, am I one slide? Which slide can you see? Sorry. There we go. And then at the same time, the property marketing strategists, they did some research to understand what was important to students in accommodation. And I don't think it's, internet being high speed, probably not surprising. Security being good, probably not surprising. But free washing, I think, is probably not necessarily something that you would think was top of mind. So we've got a picture where we've got some challenges going on because of the cost of living crisis. We know that washing is important to students within the context of other services. So Ross, it would be really good to understand what you were experiencing at Southampton.
Absolutely. Traditionally, laundry has been the hardest thing to kind of win around students, win students over with. It's traditionally the lowest scoring aspect of their experience in halls. You can see on the screen there, 2.9 out of 5 was our last, I think that was the Rate Your Crib survey result. And students always have the same kind of issues with laundry. They don't want to pay for it fundamentally. So price is perceived as quite high on top of, what they already consider to be quite high for rents and so on. And with the cost of living changing for the worse as well, obviously every penny counts. And so the competitive pricing of laundry, while we may be charging a decent rate compared with laundries at universities that are similar sized, just down the road from us, that doesn't still wash, pardon the pun, with students. And then there's other things as well, such as machine reliability or availability as well, issues with payment apps and things like that felt a bit clunky for students. And so the challenge really was for us to try to look at how we could improve that rating for students. I mean, it's not about number, it's about student satisfaction. How we could get the student satisfaction increased. Look at how we could lower the costing, improve the availability and the reliability of machines, and do away with payment cards, apps, things that they had to top up to use the machines with. So we long fought to try to get contactless payments, for example, at machines.
So then, obviously, traditionally, universities will go for a managed service where students pay at point of use and the university shares the revenue. And I guess arguably would be the safe path to take. So what made Southampton decide to look a bit wider and see if there was a different way to do things?
I think one of our colleagues actually went to Cuba or Azure one year, and they were speaking to Leeds, I think Leeds might be here. And there was an alternative laundry model spoken about that they did at Leeds, and we were quite interested in that. And I think, if memory serves, it was a free at point of use model, but with restrictions on number. And I might be misquoting there, but I think that was what it was. And so it got us thinking about what does exist out there in laundry, and this rental model seemed to be something interesting to try. So it got us thinking about the options, and so we started on a sort of mini campaign to do some soft testing, see what's out there, and try to move towards a free model of laundry provision for students. Ultimately, that was the aim.
Okay. And then from our discussions, I guess to really give you guys confidence and to start moving forward, collaboration, particularly with the student body, was really crucial.
Really was. Before I come on to students, just within our own university, there's so many departments that pulled together on this project to kind of achieve what we wanted. So, of course, there's procurement and finance. I had to work with other residency staff to find out what challenges they felt they had from their own operational management, irrespective of students. The maintenance teams to make sure that the machines that we were changing out and the equipment behind and everything else, all of that had to work. But fundamentally, it was the student voice that came into the fore. Students' union and the student voice was involved very, very heavily. So what we did with this project, and I've been involved in a number of tender procurements, is we actually invited the students' union body after doing feedback sessions with students to get their opinions. We invited them to be part of the tender as well. So they actually worked on the specification with us so that everything that they had gathered from the students as to what they wanted to see was incorporated to some level. Of course, we can't just go carte blanche with what students want. They were then involved at most of the stages of the tender as well. So not just the specification writing, but also scoring, being involved in the interviews by the various companies applying for the business. So that collaboration piece was really what made this work.
I suppose then the next challenge is, to your point, students might want lots and lots of different things, but there's what they would like and then whether it's going to be achievable or not, which could be two different things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we have our student union president nominations each year, the things that you've seen that they're going to promise they're going to get for the student body is sometimes a bit of a laugh, because they'll say they're going to have barbecues on the roof and things like that. And of course, there's stuff that they want, but they're not going to get. So, but with this one, it was good because there were the problems that they're experiencing were brought up, and we could say, okay, well, let's try and work this into the specification so that whoever we go with actually achieve that. And then onto this slide here, where we're talking about, what we need to do to make this work. And modelling really is absolutely vital. So any other university or organisation who are thinking of incorporating such a all-inclusive free at point of use model without limitation, that modelling piece is so vital. And the goal obviously is event setting. What we did was through SUSU, we discussed with the students, would you be happy paying a little bit more on rent to have the laundry included? And overwhelmingly, it was a positive, yes, they would. So rent setting was the goal. We needed to make sure that what we charged was covering our costs. We're not in it to make a profit under the traditional model of managed laundry, there's a commission that we would get paid for students using and paying for laundry. We never really put the money that we could make at the top of it. It was a service that we wanted to provide to try to move towards this all-inclusive rent that covers things like insurance and security cover and reception, everything else, and bills, obviously. So having laundry inclusive just fell into that whole pot. So the aim was really the student experience. So rent setting was one of the key things here. What charge do we put on per month for the students to pay that would cover us? So modelling, we needed to look at the previous figures that we had from our previous supplier. We had 99,000 washes in the prior year. So that was all we had to go on. Cost of electricity, gas, water was always going to be a difficult one to get right because of what was happening in the market, in the economy. And we had to kind of guess, if it's 100,000 washes this year, what's it going to be when it's free? So we had to take a stab in the dark guess for year one to say we're going to work on 2 times the amount that we had, and the energy and the utility costs are going to increase as well accordingly. So a lot of modelling needed to be done where we worked with finance quite closely. And the soft market testing, again, just going around with different companies who could provide laundry facilities to say, what do you include? Do you include auto dosing, for example? How much will that cost? And incorporating those extra elements as well. Ultimately, we ended up with a figure that we added onto the rent. And it's early days. It's the first year we've finished. So there will still be a little bit of tweaking to just get the figure correct on the rents.
Okay. So I guess then it's when you start to go to the market and you kind of start to say, well, we want to have it free at point of use, but we need the option to revert if needed, because obviously it's taking quite a risk. You needed it to be flexible. You needed live maintenance reporting, auto dosing, again with the option to switch it off. But then how do you do all that and still meet the sustainability requirements that are often the kind of perceived challenge with this kind of model?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we had to make sure our specification was robust, getting in everything that we wanted to cover. There was a section on that about sustainability, and we have that with actually all of our tenders. So sustainability and the university's own strategic objectives for carbon zero. Obviously, sustainability is a big one. But we've also got to balance that with the service provision as well. So where we had asked for there to be the option to revert back to either a restricted model or perhaps taking away the auto dosing if we wanted to do that at a later point, and knowing that that was possible, that meant that we could still have that ability to strive for the sustainability, but pull back a little bit if it was becoming uneconomical or the service was affected accordingly or negatively. Sorry. So we then had a look at what sustainability aspects you could offer. I think the next slide has a few of those to touch on. So one of the ones that was a nice surprise actually in the presentation that Washco put to us was this tree planting initiative. So for every machine that we were going to be renting, you plant a tree. And so that just sounds very nice, and it really ticks that kind of box of offsetting carbon emissions, with 177 tons being offset by our contract and our partnership. The big one, the most obvious one, is the reduction of plastic. So by having auto dosing, which we have in all of the machines apart from one in each laundry, for reasons of allergies and so on, there's, as you can see, 26,000 items from landfill saved per year on average, based on students not having to buy single-use plastic detergent bottles and things like that. So that's a big one. The machines being recyclable to 97%. And we'll come on to this in a moment, but the cold wash trials as well that we did that have really been very positive. So as much as we know this is happening, it's the message being sent out to the students as well. And we put this in our comms and make sure the students are aware that by using the detergent that's provided, by sticking to a cold wash, they're actually meeting, they're helping the environment and alongside that, we're meeting our own objectives. So it's really positive all round. And
I guess because there was kind of such a different model and a different approach, that was when Washpoint working with you guys and working in partnership becomes a kind of really important, because you need to feel safe when you're making so many changes and kind of testing new ground to a degree.
Absolutely, yeah. When I've been on previous tenders, you tend to get to the point where you've signed the contract, you've got your price list for whatever product or service it is, and then you see each other at the quarterly review meetings. And sometimes that's annual, depending on what product it is. And that's as far as the relationship extends pretty much, unless something isn't working, and then obviously they're pulled up by procurement. With Washco, it's been really nice because this was a novel approach to laundry provision. We're working on it together from the start, so it's a shared journey. And so a couple of things that we kind of tweaked were what we had on the specification in practice may not have worked so well, so we edited those and we worked together and had discussions to say, actually, you don't need TVs in the monitors in all of the laundries, which is something we had on there. So we said, actually, no, that's a good point. We'll take it out. We won't have those included at this point. If we want to later, then we can. It's on the specification. Or the maintenance reporting. We use a system called Plan-On for reporting our maintenance jobs. And so while Washco have the QR codes on the walls in the decoration, we've said to students, can you please use Plan-On for reporting, because it remains consistent with the processes for maintenance reporting we have across the university. So little things like that it's just been a mutual discussion and an agreement on how we want to move forward. And so now we have quite regular meetings, much more than any other contract I've been on. And we've been to conferences together and done presentations and stuff together. So yeah, the relationship between the two has been a real difference to other exercises I've done.
And then that includes, because obviously talking about that challenge around sustainability, the cold wash trial that was put in place.
Yes, absolutely. It was a suggestion made. I think we were coming up to Green Week, and we thought we could try to save a bit of energy on heating up, or unnecessarily the washing. And so cold wash was something we initially, again, this was another example of discussion. The original thought was we'll set a number of laundries to cold wash as a start. And so they will have default cold wash on their machines. Students wouldn't have any option to change the temperature in those laundries, but if they wanted to do a hot wash, they could go to another laundry and do it there. So we discussed that between us, and actually it was sort of suggested that you're taking away choice of the students, and something we shouldn't really be doing. So what we said was all laundries instead will default them to the cold wash setting, and they can still change the setting if they wish to. And the success rate of that has been just completely unexpected. I think in February, the figures showed something around 2 to 3% of washes were cold wash. And it's increased steadily, quite a rocket to, I think August was 44%. So yeah, the numbers have really flown up and sustained that climb as well. So I think, I can't remember, I worked out the percentage increases, but it was pretty substantial. And even September, we've just come into the new year with a new cohort of students. And although September does include the previous students as well, who moved out mid-September, we're at 36%. So it's the second highest figure we've had on a month-by-month basis. But from the start, that's fantastic, because it means students are coming in without any prior knowledge of this and just using the default. And indeed, some people will be choosing to use cold. But there's been an educational piece as well, where Mark and Emily came in to see students and do a cold wash trial, where they took their washing, washed it on a cold wash, gave it back to them and said, can you notice any difference? And we had very, very good feedback from that. I think everyone, apart from one or two, gave it 4 or 5 out of 5 on a ranking. And so it's just figures like that that kind of show we're doing the right thing.
Yeah, all the positive steps. But of course, that doesn't mean it's not been without its challenges, where I'm kind of working together to try and resolve and work through some of those challenges.
Absolutely, yeah. There's always going to be challenges with things. I've had to get used to Mark's personality, for instance, and that's been one. But with free laundry, of course, the big one is how do we overcome the huge change in wash numbers and the associated cost of utilities that go hand in hand with that. So communication is the thing, and what we have is a challenge, and we have to try to work out how we can solve that. So one of the things we did was we looked at access control, because firstly we didn't want to just have it completely open for students to go in, non-students, sorry, to go in, friends of students coming in, and even in some cases passers-by coming in to do some washing. We don't want that. So we've got access control points where fobs are used to access, and only students who live here have access to those. So that's one thing that stops external people using it. But we have had situations where students are using 3, 4, 5 machines at a time, and not just doing colours and lights, but pinks and everything else. So we've had to communicate very well. And one of the things I would say as well with this model, and when you're setting that modelling, is you need to install a communications plan or put one together so that you've got an annual knowledge of what you're going to be communicating, when and how frequently, and who's going to be doing that. So we have things like freshers visits, freshers talk, sorry. So we've got fairs for students when they first move in that Washco come and attend, of course. We do flat visits with our staff. We've got ambassadors who will go to laundries and station themselves in the laundries for a couple of hours each occasion to talk to students as they come in, and just make sure that if they've got any questions, they can answer those, and they can drive home the key messages that we want. And one of those being the fair use, of course. And the other thing here is the ratio of machines that we've got. The ratio across the industry is, I think, in the high double figures. So we're 1 to 75, one machine to 75 students. What we're going to be looking at doing is increasing the number of machines available over time, but obviously that's a bigger piece of work, looking at spaces that are maybe underutilized that we could expand laundries into, or create new mini laundries, just to bring the ratio down a bit, which will then enable there to be less of an availability issue. So a few challenges, but we can we've got things to try to counter them.
And if you were to say to other people, if you're looking at this, what are the things that you consider? It'd be good to kind of get your view on what those are.
So yeah, monitoring and the volatility of utilities is something that no one could really account for. We're all know very well aware of the aspects in the world at the moment that are affecting utility costs, but monitoring it, and I suppose one thing we haven't got, which we're looking at doing, is having meters in the laundries to measure actual outputs of electricity or usage of electricity and gas and water, because at the moment it's linked just to the hall's utility expenditure. So we know that electricity's use has gone up. We can see the kilowatt hours have increased, but we can't specifically allocate that or designate that to being the laundry's responsibility. It's the whole hall as an entirety. So if we can meter the laundry specifically, then we will know actually there was a 30% increase in electricity usage, and that came from the laundry. So monitoring as much as you can is really important. The fair use link to rent setting needs to be established. As I say, it will result in an increase in the number of washes naturally. Students will do half loads and things like that. So trying to get them to do a full load and making sure those comms are right. But the rent needs to be appropriately set to cover the utilities and also the cost of the detergent, because that detergent for every single wash is added and builds up. So that element of detergent costs needs to be factored into your rent setting. We didn't do that last year. The rent setting was done prior to us incorporating that detergent cost. And so we have additional costs to cover for that year. However, this year's rent setting, we've learned from the last year's, not mistake, because we didn't know we would have to do this, but we've learned from that, and we've now made the rent slightly higher again to cover the detergents, but still remaining, on par with the sort of market rises. As you can see, the future developments being made and making sure that the ratio of machines to students is appropriate to enable. And again, that's something that will come from experience. When, obviously we don't just have a new building pop up every year or anything like that, but what we will have is knowledge of how many washes we're doing and how many students per machine there are, and so how many washes per student are being done and everything else. So we can then factor that into new developments if we ever do make any new ones. And as I say, the expansion into existing areas will help with that. And knowing how to communicate to the students is a very big one. Obviously, taking aside language barriers and cultural uses, cultural effects on use, just how and when to communicate, as I said, and having ambassadors and staff to actually speak to, and making sure that any messaging we put up, I mean, we've created a few posters as we've gone through the first year. We're combining those into one more laundry specific poster that covers most of those things. We do a newsletter, and we now have a laundry aspect included in that as well for students. So it's just giving them access as easily and readily as we can.
So when we started this conversation, you were really clear that it was about improving student experience, and that was the aim. So I think that's the $50 million question, right? And whether that has been achieved.
Yeah. Now, anyone in this room, please don't look ahead at the figure on the right. We're going from left to right here. Yeah. So we had 2.9 out of 5 for our Rate Your Crib rating for laundry prior to this project, and we set a target of getting 3.5 out of 5 by 2025 and 3.7 out of 5 by 2027. Within 10 months, I think we'd had the Rate Your Crib rating back, and you already have looked ahead. I know you have. 4.1 out of 5 smashed our 2027 target. So we're really delighted at the success it's had on that. I think also there was something like only 13% of students said something along the lines of having an issue with laundry or wanting improvements in laundry. 13% is a very low figure for that, and substantially lower than the one it had been previously, where we were high double figures. So yeah, it's been an overwhelming success on that front. From a university perspective, and indeed the partnership perspective, we've been nominated for 3 awards as well at Azure, Kubo, Property Week. So we've been able to put forward very successful applications for nominations for awards, and that's been a great thing as well, because again, it just reinforces the partnership and the fact that we're on this journey together. And I think that's a nice takeaway as well, is the fact that you can work with a company to achieve a really positive relationship, and hopefully continue tweaking as you need to achieve that experience improvement for the students. There is a quote there which says, after using the laundry many times, I can say the wash quality is great with no issues, and the clothes are always dry after using the dryer, which seems to be a given for me, but I suspect that in the past they may have used machines that they were still damp coming out. But yeah, so very, very positive performance in year 1, and it's going to be interesting going into year 2 now, because we've got a year's data, so we can see the wash counts each year. We can look for trends now, year on year we can compare. So that's going to be really interesting to see as we go forward.
So we have a video sharing students' experience, and then I thought we could do questions, but I'm going to ask Sarah to share the video because I tried to do it earlier and there may or may not have been technical issues, but it seems to work from Sarah's screen.
I hope it does now we said that.
I know, you've got to feel the pressure, eh?
I feel very much right. Include sound, that was the challenge before. Let's have a go. Give me a shout if it doesn't work.
Students are not happy with laundry at their accommodations, and it's clear to see why. With hard-to-use apps, overpriced machines, and unreliable maintenance, it's no wonder more and more are looking for alternatives. At Southampton, we're flipping the script.
We had the opportunity to change the laundry game at Southampton, and this is the story of how we did it.
This is Oliver, the previous student union president and one of the main student voices behind the change.
So my involvement in this project ranged from taking on bits of student feedback, so going out and speaking to students about information, things that they would like to see changed and implemented in the new laundry contract that was proposed.
We really wanted to challenge the status quo of the traditional laundry model at pay at point of use.
This is Laura, the Associate Director of Residences and a key lead on this project.
Some of the key goals for us here at Southampton were to improve student experience and wanted at the same time to address cost of living concerns for students.
The students' input and feedback was really pivotal to this.
And this is Ross, the Deputy Manager of Residences.
We involved students in feedback forums, which were facilitated with the Students' Union President at the time. He was then involved in overseeing the specification we'd written.
And then in doing that, I had the opportunity actually to sit on the procurement panel. And we essentially went through and looked at the applications of multiple different laundry companies, and we got to essentially vet them, check what they had, make sure they had what we were looking for in their responses, and score them. And ultimately, we had the opportunity to decide who won.
So laundry and detergent is now included in the rent. This means for students it's free at point of use. We've also been able to address some of the feedback we had regarding cost of living by making budgeting easier for students on a week-by-week basis.
From now on, you won't even have to worry about topping up an account. Washing your clothes is now as simple as finding an empty washer. You can check out the real-time availability on the Washpoint website. And you can even set a reminder to tell you when the next machine is free. Just pop your clothes in, making sure to separate lights from darks. You don't even need to bring laundry detergent or fabric conditioner, as this is all preloaded into the machine. And that's it. Let's see what students in halls think about the Washpoint laundry system.
So I think it's really improved my student experience here.
100%. Like it's just another thing I don't have to worry about.
It's good, easy to use as well. Just throw in my laundry, do something, come back, take it, go, that's it.
What are you going to do with all the money you save?
Just lots of McDonald's.
Groceries, food, go out more.
Things like driving lessons.
I've heard it was quite expensive last year, so that's like an extra pint per wash for me.
No, but it just makes it easier. When I go grocery shopping, I don't need to add it to my, budgets or whatnot.
It's nice to have it. It adds up definitely in the long run.
As an international student, it gives me a lot of freedom.
Honestly, I didn't know how washing machines worked when I first came to uni, so it was quite easy for me.
You don't have to go out and get your own detergent. You can just walk down, chuck it in, and you don't have to really worry about it whatsoever.
So if you hear your friends elsewhere complaining about the cost of laundry or that the machines are broken, you can rest assured, knowing that Southampton has got you covered.
Thanks, Sarah. No technical issues. So I wondered if anyone had any questions that they wanted to ask, questions, comments, thoughts about the model. Vicky.
Hello. I wondered if you were able to say whether you're better or worse off overall financially from this, or is it something you haven't measured as such? Or
financially, I think we are, because of the changes in the electricity that really changed in that year.
Yeah.
We have taken, I think, an initial dent, but and also the cost of the detergent, but not to a degree where we think, oh no, this has been a mistake. 100% the other side of that. We feel this has been a really positive thing. As I say, the aim was not to profit but to break even.
Yeah.
And we just need to get that modelling a little bit better, or tweak it to just make sure that that's covered. And things have levelled off a little bit in terms of utilities.
Yeah.
We have increased the rent for the students this year, as we do every year. It's just a natural thing. So we've had that first year of riding through that storm and trying to just edit it a little bit. So now, as I say, the detergents also we've included in that element of costings. So we feel much more confident this year of breaking even and not making a loss.
Okay, it's great. It's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gareth.
Yeah, just a quick one, because we're currently, at the moment, we're actually writing our specifications, so we're due to go out to market interest in November for tender early next year, because we're looking at our contract's up and we need to do that by next September. But obviously we've got other things. So obviously you've got the free model there for students, but you've got then options. So if you have when the international students come over, housekeeping, we sometimes give them out to conferences and that sort of stuff. So do you have, is there an like that payment option then when those type of people come in? Or if you don't, then because obviously then the students picking up that financial hit as well. And could you?
I don't think the machines can be modified, and Emily and Mark might correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the machines can be modified in that way. But yes. I would.
Hi, thanks Ross, by the way, for your feedback. Gareth, hello.
How you doing,
Thank you
sir?
for the question. Very good, very good. So yeah, simple answer is that yes, whilst we are kind of enjoying working in partnership with the University of Southampton, we kind of touched on a fair use model as well as a free at point of use model. So the short answer to you, Gareth, is yes, we would look to kind of discuss with you which is the best approach, and therefore be able to supply a fair use policy to your residents. Would also then incorporate the ability to cost specifically for corporate hospitality or or student groups in summertime, and allow us to keep track of your housekeeping usage. So yeah, we've got the models to suit a variation of kind of whether that's managed fair use or free at point of use, but
so we can revert if you wanted to revert in the summer. It's not what we're doing with Southampton, but if it was, we want to charge the conference guests, the summer schools. Absolutely, there's the ability to look at those different modelling. So free at point of use to students during term time, but revert to a vended solution for the summer. Yeah. They're all on the table. All options.
That's fine. We blame Oasis for putting concerts on, and then all of a sudden we've got to go back to conferences again.
Yes.
There we go. Am I allowed to ask another one? Can I be cheeky? Perfect. It's one for us. Also, we're currently working on our specification at the moment, so I'm not sure if it would have applied though, because obviously you've gone through to modelling. Was there any issues you found with like IT restrictions or anything like that?
I can't remember the IT issues. I know we have Wi-Fi in all the laundries anyway, and I know IT were involved in the process, and they came out and did data surveys and things, but I can't really recall too much involvement there. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to think back. Mark, can you recall?
Right.
Sorry, I'm waiting for Emily she's slow on clicking the unmute button. So yes, Gareth and Ross answered your response as well. The technology we use, whilst we would like to connect to a hardwired RJ45, which I know is in most of the laundrette facilities that we would be looking at. We also have a backup SIM in our cashless payment system. So it means that we can work with either, whether there's Wi-Fi or no Wi-Fi. And in the event of Wi-Fi failure, then the SIM backup kicks in. So it means there's a consistency. Obviously, hardwired is when the service provider is reliable, the best way to go. But the utopian option is, if that fails, we have the SIM cards in place to continue the service. So
perfect.
The specification writing, Gareth, took an inordinate amount of time, and it seems like such an age ago now where I discussed these SIM options. Now it's all coming back as Mark was talking.
No, we're on about Well, as Mark knows, we're for a while that we've had to delay. We're on about month 14 of writing. So yeah, because of obviously all the different stakeholders, and then something will come up. Then you have to then think about that. So I would cheekily ask us if you were willing to share a copy of yours, just so in case we've missed a bit.
I'll have a look to see what we could share, and
awesome.
I'll get in touch. Yeah,
that'd be appreciated. Cheers, Ross. I'm going to be quiet now. Let the people speak.
Katrina.
Hi, this might be a bit of a cheeky question. I wondered, Ross, if you were able to give an idea of what that rent increase looked like.
Yeah, in the first year, it was about £6.07 per month per student.
Per student per month.
Yeah, and we also needed to consider in doing that the length of contracts for individual students. So we went on a basis of, 4,800 students who are on 40-week contracts, and then the remaining 1,300 students being on a 51-week contract. So that was factored into modelling this and reaching that figure.
Not bad, actually, is it, for the?
No, I don't think so. £1.50,
yeah.
£1.50 a week, and I mean, just to give you context, the previous cost for them to do a wash was £2.70 and £1.20 for a dry. So they're paying £3.90 for a single wash and dry. So if I do a wash a week, they're already, making £2 something on that. So
yeah. Thank you.
No problem. Vicky. Oh, you're on mute, Vicky. Sorry.
Sorry. When you do the revert mode for conferences, is that something that can be done remotely, or does the engineer need to come to site? Or
the answer is remotely. So yeah, with the kind of IoT technology, then we have a view of the wash and dry machines in action, as well as autonomy to kind of do certain kind of remote actions.
We have the power. We have the power and the communication with our sites from head office straight to what we're doing on site.
Thanks, that's good to know.
Kevin.
Hiya. You talked about fair use policy. Are you looking at, as an individual hammering it, or are you just saying we expect to have 100,000 cycles a year? It's in that ballpark, therefore we're all right.
Hammering the message, or the student who is doing it?
Hammering the machine.
Yeah, I mean, we've got quite a number of machines in some laundries. Obviously, some sites have, like, one's got 20, one's got 40 odd. Then we've got another couple that got 2 only. So, and they're in areas that are accordingly, appropriate to the number of students there.
I think, sorry, Ross, to jump in. When we talk about fair use, then it would be talking with a university partner to say, look, what length of contracts, what would you see as a fair usage for individuals? Now, that could be 1 wash and dry a week, or 2 washes and dries a week, or 5 washes, 5 dries a month. So and that allows you to probably review costing. So it takes away the risk of overuse. You can obviously kind of calculate water and utility usage probably a bit more accurately. But then you, as I say, Ross started the conversation. It's student satisfaction, and I think we have lots of discussions where a fair use will give you student satisfaction, at the same time remain kind of retaining some sort of kind of cap on usage levels. And then you get into discussion about, well, residents aren't restricted in how many showers a week or how many times they flush a toilet. So, it's when we talk about fair use, it's individual partners and what's best for them and how they want to put the kind of provision forward.
We do restrict them. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go on. Oh, you're just going to say you restrict them. Carry on. This is what I'm interested in, if you're restricting them.
No, it was a joke about the toilets. We restrict that. However, when we modelled, I think what our financial accountant put through was 1 wash per student per week and one dry, and that was only a stab in the dark, as I say. So modelling on 1 wash and dry per student per week, I think it came to 270,000 washes across the course of the year based on the number of students, and we were at 240,000 by the end. However, after the first 2 months, I was shaking a bit because the figures were huge, and I thought on this current trend we're looking at sort of over 3 times the over 300,000. So it was looking a bit hairy in the first couple of months, but it leveled out, and naturally there's periods of emptiness. So Christmas, when students can stay, but a good majority of them go home, the Easter break and so on. So, and exams as well. When people are doing exams, they quieten again down. So those cancel out the initial couple of months of it's free and there's nothing much to do. There's no exams at that point. So, I think if we were seeing figures that were extended beyond 1 wash and dry per week, then we would start to consider maybe then what we do in terms of, do we revert back to a restricted number of washes per year per student or something like that, which we knew we had the option to do, or we could have taken out the detergent and said we're not going to do auto dose anymore. And that saves us this much money per year, so that makes it economically viable once again. But doing so means a detriment to sustainability aspects. So they're considerations we could have had figures continued in that path, but things settled down.
I'll let Sarah jump in because I have a follow-up question, but I'll let Sarah jump in.
Sure thing. Hi, Sarah.
Thank you, Kev. My question, you mentioned about the students reporting issues with the machines via Planon, which we're yet to change over to. That's a different story. Is there the facilities where they can report them direct to Washco? Probably more of a Wash question to Mark and Emily.
I think they can, can't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So with each university, again, it's bespoke to what the requirement is for that university. So at Southampton, our service team worked with your service teams to make sure that we set up through Planon, and making sure that the students were going through and that the codes were right, so we could analyze service reporting. But absolutely, in the majority of sites, the students are coming directly to us and to our service centre, obviously, where we're supporting the students and all the weird and wonderful things that they ask us when they first use a washing machine, which no one's taught them how to use.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Back to you,
Thank
Kev.
you.
Here's Sarah. Following on from what I was asking, so what I was thinking was education. So if somebody is going down every single day and just washing one item of clothing, would you see that? And if are you not going down to that level? Because I know you've got access, and presumably it's fob access, and it'll tell you who's been in when and where.
Yeah, we can see that a student has used a fob on a door. Some of the laundries, particularly Mayflower, where I'm right next door to at the moment, there's a negative pressure in the laundry. This is not Washco's fault. There's a negative pressure in the laundry, so the door will not close properly, and students will naturally let the latch come out on the door, and it bounces open. So actually, we haven't got any ability to know in that case. And some of them are within an actual halls of residence they've already got the access through into, and so they can just go into the laundry. Others have, although we have a fob reader and they should be on fobs, they have dual function, so they can be on a PIN code as well. And some sites might choose to do that to have a limited period of time for, say, conference guests when they're in at the same time as students. So there is limited ability to be very specific about that, especially because you'll get 2 or 3 students could tailgate, or 2 friends will go down together, and only one is going to fob in. So it really, it's a bit of a, it would take more time than the value of trying to go down to that level. And so really it's more of a holistic piece of trying to encourage students to be thoughtful about about their use, because other students will also doing the same thing hinder their use of the laundry, and allowing them to see the sustainability impact as well by being, using full loads and things like that, and also educating in terms of knowing that a full load isn't going to be less good of a wash than doing a quarter of a load, for example. Sorry, Emily and Mark have their hand up.
Yeah, so just to follow up on what Ross was saying, as Ross said at the beginning when we first started this contract, and we were tracking the usage from day one, and we were all a bit quaky as it was going crazy through the roof. But as Ross said, it started to settle down, because the excitement of doing your laundry soon wears off, and then they soon realise, I don't want to go down to the laundry room until I've got a full load of laundry to do, which is why we saw the beginning, and then we saw the settling of it. And also the messaging that we're working with Ross and the university to put out messaging for student reminders. But we have Tom, who Ross knows very well, Tom Oliphant, who is the CSM, who's the client site manager in all of the sites weekly, and he's watching student habits and reminding students, like, to not put your whites and blacks in one and another, or greens and blues and pinks, because there was a bit of that going on. So it's about the education piece, and when we're out on site doing the cold wash weeks, so actually the craziness that happened at the beginning, we will feel much more calmer as we went through the year, and we've now got a whole year's usage. But actually that initial excitement of being able to use as many machines as possible isn't actually quite that exciting after you've been there a couple of months. So
yeah, I mean, it is that messaging that it's a communal environment, and I think part of university is to teach the young residents how to live in the real world as well as their education. So we work with Southampton to kind of reinforce that message, say, look guys, everyone is using this, and it's part of the learning experience of living away from home.
We've just got to try and stop staff coming in with their washing. They haven't done that yet, but
that's right.
It's only a matter of time. Only a matter of time.
And mums or parents with their duvets for the size of the machines.
Yes.
Thank you for your question. Any other questions?
Sorry, mine goes back to the fair usage where you were, and I think at the beginning it said it's like credits that are applied. So is that going back to where students would maybe have like an app and so many credits that they could use against the machine? Is that how that would work?
Two ways of doing it. So we have the fair usage in other universities such as Brunel University, Sheffield, who they actually have a fob, a Washpoint fob, which when their university ID on their lanyard, it has a fob on it as well, and it has a certain amount of washes on it, and that is agreed individually with the university. Certain amount of wash and dries for the year they're there. They use all of them, and when they finish them, they can contactless tap and go. No need to download an app. No need to put credit on anything. You just use your fob, which is on your ID, and then at the end of it, or you want to do more, you can simply tap and go, which also means that anyone who's not in residence who wants to use the machines, which is sometimes staff on campus, or someone's in another property and there's a problem with their domestic machine, that they can actually use them on campus. So absolutely, that there is that ability to really easily do that, and that can be, generally it's a set amount of credit for the year, but there is the flexibility to top up monthly without having to go and put in codes. We can actually program those fobs. So for example, if we're giving a house, we give each of the sites a housekeeping fob, and that will have, for example, £50 credit on. If they use £40, it will top back up to £50. Vicky knows all about these fobs. They have them at Royal Holloway. So it's all done remotely without the need for codes or grabbing email addresses and topping up and all of that. It makes the administration side of it very simple and no sort of long-winded process.
Thank you.
Fab. Well, I think that looks like all the questions. Oh, you're on mute, Sarah.
Sarah, you're on mute.
Apologies. I've just been having some challenges with my computer, so everybody's faces have disappeared off of the screen, but hopefully they'll still show on the recording. Thank you so much. That was very, very interesting to find out kind of everything that's been going on in Southampton. Yeah, I wish I had that back in my days at university. It would have been great. As I said earlier, the recording will be available after the session if anybody wants to go back and revisit anything along with the slides as well. Thank you very much, and I'll hand back over to Emily.
I just want to say thank you for everyone's time. Thank you, Ross, for your time and also the preparation that you gave it. It was super interesting to hear everything. And yeah, if anyone needs more information, let us know.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Questions as well.
Thanks for the share.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.